Welcome to the Two Wealth Show, a show that shares how you can create real wealth for you and your family. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Bogard, and my co-host is Elizabeth Sickles, aka Super E. I am a real estate note investor, specializing in performing residential real estate debt. I find the deals, acquire them for my own portfolio, as well as educate investors while walking them through the process of owning a real estate note. My co-host Super E, a real estate investor, specializing in short-term rentals and the management of them. She connects investors with short-term tenants and manages everything in between. Our show is sponsored by BrightPath Notes and Elizabeth Maora. You can find out more information by visiting our websites at brightpathnotes.com and elizabethmaora.com. Welcome to another edition of the Two Wealth Show. This is episode number 20, and I am Justin Bogard with BrightPath Notes.
And I'm Elizabeth with Elizabeth Maora.
Elizabeth, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. I just bought a travel trailer, and so me and the girls are kind of experiencing life out there in some of the campsites for a little bit. So they're eager to get out there. Actually, last night.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. You never know how much you have to prepare for when you get something like this. So, thinking from like, okay, I need to get like, special toilet paper, right? And you got to get certain cleaning supplies, and then you have to, minimize the amount of weight that you have when you're pulling it around. So it's just a whole new dynamic for me. So it's like, it's pretty interesting. So I've learned a lot so far. It's like I had a crash course over the last couple of weeks.
Congratulations.
On how this lifestyle is. So thank you.
And speaking of being prepared, we have a very special guest today who has been in real estate for 47 years and still going 90 miles an hour. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome our guest, Mr. Dave Short, to the episode. So welcome, Dave.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So 47 years. Can you tell us what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
My biggest lesson that I would take to new people getting in it, I'm kind of a deal junkie, and I don't have anybody sometimes to put a throttle on me. So if you're a deal junkie, get somebody that can put a throttle on you.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So what you're saying for our listener here is that you see a deal, you just try to make it work with your numbers and how you can, exit out of this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and what you do is you sometimes get off your rail without somebody looking over your shoulder and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? So that's probably as big as, trying to make every deal work. I mean, I'm really not that guy, and I understand value sometimes fairly quickly, so I can let a deal go very quickly. So
and who is your throttle? Is it a business partner? Is it Marty?
Marty is probably my wife. Marty is probably my biggest throttle, but the situation with her, sometimes I can steamroll her. And, so sometimes it doesn't work out well. And every once in a while I'll get one of those, I told you so, or what were you thinking here?
Right.
I get a lot of that.
So Dave, you've had a pretty long journey here from the time that you started getting in real estate to fast forward to today. I know Elizabeth mentioned how many years you've been in real estate. So like whenever you first started, like really being a real estate investor, what were you seeing yourself doing beyond the next 5 to 10 years? Did you see yourself just further advancing your career, or you were just wanting to do this as a hobby?
Well, one of the things that I did early on is I tried to tried to create 4 or 5 businesses within the real estate business. meaning that if rentals, one of them maybe being rentals, one of them would be brokerage in real estate, one of them would be flipping houses, one of them would be buying and selling notes. So my thought process, if one of the areas was down, one of the other areas would pick up. So consequently, if the brokerage hit the tank, then now I'm looking to acquire rentals. Early 80s, the brokerage hit the tank. So now we're trying to acquire at the point a lot of rentals on it. So we're trying to keep a cash flow based on each one of these quadrants that I would kind of dabble in. And, I've always been a learner. So I'm a big goal setter. I've also went and read a lot in regards to goal setting and taught a lot of classes in regards to that. So it helped keep me on track.
That's awesome. That's a great thing for new people to understand, to be totally diversified within the general real estate world, right? So it sounds like you have like a pie, then you have a slice of pie that you learn along the way so that you can choose in whatever economic cycle is going on in real estate, where you want to put most of your effort so that you can be, I assume, the most profitable that you can.
Well, it's most profitable, but, just creating, generating income for yourself in regards into the area that would be working well in that, in that specific area, in that specific time. I mean, in the early 80s, we did some brokerage and we got very good at creative financing. But, when people are saying today in today's economy, man, we'll be dead if the interest rates jump to 5 or 6%.
Right.
We were placing 30-year fixed mortgages at 16.5%.
Wow.
There were buyers.
It's hard to believe.
Well, it is hard to believe. And then some of the things that we said and talked to people about, and I'm thinking, man, we'll just kill it if the interest rate just gets to 10. Just needs to be at 10% and we'll kill it. So, seeing these kind of rates today is just like candy.
Absolutely. And are you doing the mortgage stuff now, Dave?
We do some of the mortgage stuff that we're doing now, and we're doing maybe 3 to 4 a year. We would do more, but we're buying property, doing modest rehabs, and then creating mortgages.
Okay.
So we've been, those are the best things since apple butter. I mean, creating a mortgage is just unbelievable from the returns that you can get on these kinds of properties, and they're easier to sell than a flip.
Wow. And what is the most amount of flips that you've done in a 1 year period?
I think about 4 years ago, we did 42 flips in 1 year.
Wow.
So we were shaking and moving that year. So yeah, we were pretty busy.
Yeah.
But they were a little bit easier to find, and we tried to scale that back with the same profitability. And we can talk about that later, because that's kind of where it's at. It's not numbers, it's how profitable you are on your flips.
So just doing some quick math here, that's obviously between 3 to 4 a month that you were averaging in that time period.
Wow.
And that was a 2017-ish time period?
Yeah, 2017, 2018. Product was a little bit easier to find then with sheriff sales and some of our networking partners that we had. So that's kind of why we did the numbers that we did.
One of the things that's great about Dave is because he has such an amazing reputation and has been in the industry so long, is people call him for deals because they know he'll close. They know he'll buy it. No problem if it's a deal. So I think that's a huge testament just to your integrity and to your reputation.
We do. We're very blessed with a good network, and we try to make all those deals happen. And quite honestly, doing that, we're able to scale back. We'll probably do 22 or 23 this year, and our profit will be double what it was when we did 40.
Wow. Congratulations.
Just from a management standpoint, and just being substantially more targeted in our flips and what we do.
And can you talk a little bit more about that, Dave, to help some of our listeners and our viewers? Because we do, we want to get to, we want 100 doors, or we want to be doing 40 flips a year. But can you talk more on the monetary side, and even just how you guys, have come to, okay, you're doing more, but you're doing less and making more, you're more profitable?
Well, one of the things in doing more, number one, we were run ragged. We didn't do as good a job today as we did. We were willing to take lower margins because they sold and we knew we could move them out. But just my wife and I, to a point, it's age. We don't want to run we run a pretty hectic lifestyle now. But we felt that we could do 20 flips at double the profit that we were doing 40 flips at. And this year, for instance, we'll probably close in that 22, 23 range. And our goal for this year was 20 flips at $20,000. So that's a pretty good income on it. And I have a lot of private investors that I do my deals with the situation that the 20,000 is the 20 that I receive, and my investors are either getting a return on their investment or they're JVing with me and making $20,000 also. So we've stepped up the numbers that we do. And one of the things that as we're entering different marketplaces, we'll do a $100,000 flip on it. That's not a problem. We'll do a $500,000 flip. But even if we do the $100,000 flip, we've just staggered who we use. I mean, we have bits and pieces of 4 crews that we use for it. And I've got 1 crew or 2 crews that I'll use on a house that's going to sell for under 130 on it, because those houses were not necessarily going in. Before, when we were at a bunch of flips, we'd always put granite in. It was a $100,000 flip. Well, it isn't necessary. So we put the same products in the 100 that we did in the 400. And so consequently, we were overspending in material $3,000 to $4,000 on a specific flip. So we basically took that, knowing that person at $120,000 will take a house that's above a rent-ready rehab. But we don't have to spend a lot more money to do that. So, we're more likely to put in a refrigerator in a $120,000 house than we are a $250,000 house, with the thought that the $250,000 a person has the money to buy their refrigerator, the 120 doesn't. So we can, and then if we put it in, we can choose it and put it in to make it more viable, because they don't have the $900 if they're only putting 3% down to buy their refrigerator. So we make our house more attractive to them.
That makes total sense.
And we'll do a laminate countertop. I mean, even in a small house, a granite or quartz countertop is going to be $1,800, and we can put a laminate that you can't hardly tell the laminate today from some of the granite. It's $200 to put that in. So we're very cautious in what we do in those houses. So consequently, we've done 3 houses under 130 this year, and wow. We've made $25,000 to $40,000 on each of those houses by just managing our cost and our time constraints. And I do a lot of coaching, so it's a new flipper's point of entry is really, really important. So we have to, if I'm going to coach it, I have to be able to do it myself to put them into the product. So that's why we don't have a problem going into $120,000 all-in flip on it, because that's where the newbies need and want to be, and we want to be able to coach them through that product, and they can make money on their flips.
Dave, that was some great insight as to what you do, and the numbers that you mentioned, south of $130,000 property to make that much profit. It sounds like it's a lot higher than most flippers that I know. So you're obviously your experience has weighed in to where you're able to.
Well, and they're all not that good for sure, but we're getting in these properties and doing a good job as far as what we do to them. You know, before I would maybe automatically put all new windows in them. Well, we can do that, but now we've got guys that we don't go to a window company to do that. We go buy our windows for $110 at a Menards, and we get a guy to put them in for $50. Where if you go to Window World, which new flippers go, or a company like that, you know, they're going to spend $320 or $330 an opening on it. They're going to wait 5 to 6 weeks to get the house done. So there's a lot of ways to cut without giving away quality in entry level type houses.
Yeah, makes total sense. So just to back up for our listeners, so I don't think we mentioned this, but Dave is a local to the Indianapolis area as far as, you know, Elizabeth and I, where we do our business at. And he's been a wealth of knowledge to all the new people coming into the real estate world. And Dave's experience and his total transparency as to how he runs his business and to how the numbers work, and just to helping and offering, you know, great advice to people without asking anything in return he's been just a saint for our local CIREA organization, our Central Indiana Real Estate Investor Association. So Dave, I just want to personally thank you for all the stuff that you've done. I've been to some of your classes before, your what we call your little subgroups, and you always give some sort of piece of information that everyone's just like, oh, I never thought about that, because all your experience you just kind of share and pay it forward to other people. So you've been a true blessing for all of us to have. And the listener here, Dave's probably the most well-known real estate flipper that we have in our Indianapolis area. So when he speaks or gives advice or something, you know, you want to pay attention and listen to what he has to say, because it'll add value to you at some point.
Well, we like doing that stuff. I mean, I enjoy doing that and giving back. And you know, obviously, I've figured out early in life that the more you give, you'll get tenfold back on it. So that's never been a problem. One of the classes that we're going to have, I haven't decided if it's going to be a subgroup or for our main meeting at CIREA. And I normally do it once a year, but I'm going to take one of our houses and totally break down. And it's going to be one of the houses that I got my ass kicked on. My butt kicked on. So, you know, we're not perfect. We get in deals and it just doesn't go well, but there's a way to handle that deal and still be in the business after it's over with. And most of the people that get in that, they're not in the business afterwards. So we try to take them through one of our really poor transactions and how we acted and what we did and how we treated investors that was in that deal. So it's something that you get both sides of it. It's not all fun and games, and it can be very stressful.
You know, that is a good question, Dave, is how, you know, especially because you and Marty's his wife, you guys work together, you know, obviously you're married. So how do you deal with things, you know, dealing with a spouse that you work with all the time whenever things are going totally crazy with as many flips and as much as you guys have going on in real estate? How do you keep that kind of sacred?
Well, she's you know, one of the things is she's as passionate about the business as I am. Okay, she enjoys the end result as much as I do when we get a house done. And we're basically on for it's not lack of a better term, it's the perfect term, is like I'm a visionary. I see ahead, I see things, I see what a house can do and be. My wife is a facilitator. So basically she supports me, and I very seldom get in her lane, and she very seldom gets in my lane. She gets in my lane more than I get in her. And so it's like, I mean, if I go in the morning and at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm writing a check out of the checkbook, what are you doing that for? Where's that going? you make a copy? I mean, it's like, I don't even want to do it. I just want to tell her to write it for me and get it. But she's in her lane. I'm in my lane. She loves to she's okay going to Lowe's and picking out everything and getting, and hitting the houses. And then she goes back at the end of the house and makes sure it's detailed out and is on the contractors to, hey, you got a punch out list of 15 things. We need you to get over here and get this done before the house goes on the market type thing. So we have our own lanes and, we've got, we're very blessed. We've got a perfect marriage in regards to she has her life, I have my life, and we have our life together, and it just works.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's
38 years. So, we've tested the time frame here.
I bet. Dave, I have a question for you here. So in your whole real estate career, do you have like a favorite part of real estate that you just love to do all the time and a part of real estate that you don't really like to do? Because I know you've done pretty much everything in real estate that you can do for investing.
Flipping is our passion on it. I love to find the deals and work out the deals and do the deals. And then, we have good team members that we can, once I get it, I can set everything in motion and can just make a call. So I can just do my deal. The insurance, Marty takes care of that. She takes care of the utilities. She knows what I won't do and are not, just not consistent enough to do. So I really like the flipping side. Probably the least fun side that we had was in the rental side of the business. And we at one point, we had 100 single family lease options. Mm-hmm. Wow. And when we had those, we just hated life. We were just chasing our profit every month. It's like when you had 100 houses with fairly decent tenants, we were self-managed. So Marty managed all the properties. And so when we would get have our payments in the rental property paid a month ahead. So the first 10 days of the month, we'd get the payments for next month. In the next 4 or 5 days, we would start to, get our buffer that we always build in. And then the last 10, 11 houses, we're chasing our profit. So we're chasing our profit every month on it. And that's the hardest thing about self-managing on the property. But yet we felt we were better than any. And the managers today are a lot better than they were when we had those properties. Those were in the late 80s, early 90s, starting at 2000, 2002. But the property manager and the tenant base, some of the things today that I wouldn't necessarily tell somebody not to buy rentals, because I think today, done properly, the tenant base is very good compared to what we had back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the tenant base is so much better today than it was back then. And some of the things that we didn't have with the management of property, we had tenants that could only be renters. They could only be tenants. They could never be buyers. Where I think the key today for people who's managing rental property is that I wouldn't take a tenant on a property that I owned unless they could be a buyer, because they're going to have different sets of qualifications, criteria, right. Taking care of their house, being more honest about getting their rent paid. But if they're always going to be a renter, then they have no reason to care for your property. Mm-hmm. So
that's a great tip.
I want tenants that want to live in a home, and not just live in a house. So that part of it can be done today. And the managers are a lot better. I mean, they're just a lot better. Sterling Davis, Uthosity, and there's just all kinds of guys like, not all kinds, but there's a lot of people out there that can effectively manage properties.
Right.
It's kind of rambling, but
That's okay. Mm-hmm. No, that's a great insight, because the mentality of that tenant versus that potential owner is totally different. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm glad that you said that.
Absolutely. And Dave, I want to touch on too, you mentioned the coaching. So Dave does a lot of teaching. He teaches classes on how to rehab correctly through Cyria, and also coaching. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about what you offer for students?
Well, I do if you're a member of Cyria, then once a month I do a subgroup called Dinner and Deals with Dave. And I come in and I normally give an in-depth analysis of 3 properties that we're working on. One that we've just bought, one that we're halfway through, and one what it looks like at the end. So we're kind of rotating those houses every month. So when you see the house, first of all, that we just bought it, you're probably going to see it in one of my classes when we're done, and what our projections are for profit and timing and all this stuff. So it's, and we give you the good and the bad with the houses that we buy. And so it's an insight that people have. Also, which we can cover later, but we have an event center and a co-working space in Irvington that's the headquarters for Cyria. Well, in my co-working space, I don't do one-on-one coaching. It's pretty expensive. If I did it, it would be $200 to $300 an hour to do that. But if somebody wants some coaching and wants to be a part of a real estate incubator, for lack of a better term, if they join my co-working space as a member, which is $129 a month, every other Monday, I make myself available from 10 to noon, and we just talk about what you got going on in the real estate and how we can help you. So you can effectively every other week get $400 worth of coaching or questions answered or something that's going on. Plus you've got a good atmosphere to work in where you'll be with like-kind individuals. And we have 10 or 12 people that's joined just to kind of get that coaching. But if somebody's really serious about the coaching, then I do a 3-day boot camp through Cyria, and it's coming up at the end of October. But we'll spend 3 days, 2 days of lecture and 1 day in the field analyzing actual properties that we have going on. We have one that's, we're just starting. We have one that we're halfway through and one that we're probably done. So the students can see how they should present a property. We talk about, one of the biggest things with students is, well, I've been out here and, I've been looking for a year and I can't find anything. Well, I don't know how that's possible if I can find 25 to 40, right? You can't find one. So, we spend about a half a day on helping people trying to find these properties. And, first time we did the class about 4 years ago, we had like 10 strategies to find houses. And today we have somewhere around 35 to 40 strategies to find houses.
Yeah.
And I can bring my board into it and say, look, we did 25 houses this year. And of these 25 houses, there's 12 different strategies that we've used to find these. This is where these houses came from. So we utilize all the strategies that we try to teach. So it's a pretty cool class. I'm pretty proud of it. And the statistical average, if you go to a Fortune Builders, great program, great stuff, but Fortune Builders is $40,000 to go to their 5-day camp. And we've had people come into and their statistical average is about 10, 12% of the people actually do deals on a consistent basis. And on our students, we're averaging about 50 to 55% of the students do deals.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
But they have, part of our class is they have me to coach them through their first deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, the rule is if you go to my class, you don't buy a deal unless I pass on it.
Right.
That I've got to look at it and say, hey, here's the deal. Is like, I would never buy this house, or you could probably buy this house and make a profit, but I wouldn't buy it. And the other one is if you don't buy it, I'll buy it. Then you should only close on that one. If there's a reason I'm not doing a deal, then you as a rookie flipper shouldn't do the deal.
So they can contact Cyrea.club for more information on that 3-day boot camp program.
Yep.
Okay. Once again, that's Cyrea, CIREIA.club is the website. Go there. You can find Dave's 3-day boot camp there. So, Dave, we are out of time for today's episode, and we truly appreciate you staying on. And actually, Dave, we'd like to have you on again if you're willing to wrap with us again and record some more great insights that you have about real estate.
I've got it. I can do it.
All right. Well, don't forget, not only do we have Dave's coaching class, but for the note investing side, we have our constant cash flow class for a program, not class. Go to our website, brightpathnotes.com, and you can find our constant cash flow training course as well. And Elizabeth, she has Elizabeth Maora University. And Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yes, so you can find us at elizabethmaora.com for your online program.
Okay. All right, buddy. This was a great episode number 20. We appreciate Dave Short being on. We're excited to have part 2 of this as well. And I'm Justin Bogard with BrightPath Notes.
I'm Elizabeth with Elizabeth Maora. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
The Two Wealth Show is produced by Justin Bogard and Super E, sponsored by BrightPath Notes and Elizabeth Maora. Thanks for listening and watching for our show.